What if the clearest evidence of alien life isn't hiding under the rust-colored dust of Mars, or tucked away in the swirling arms of some distant galaxy, billions of light-years beyond our reach? What if it's much, much closer? What if it's inside? The faint, complex chemical fingerprint of a world just 124 light-years away. A mere stone's throw in the cosmic sense? This isn't the opening line of a science fiction novel you might pick up at the airport. This is grounded in real, hard data. Data beamed back to Earth by the most powerful space telescope humanity has ever conceived, the James Webb Space Telescope. And that data, initially a tangled mess of light and shadow, was recently put through a filter unlike any we've used before, a quantum artificial intelligence system. What that system decoded wasn't just interesting, it revealed something that sent a jolt of electricity through even the most seasoned, cautious scientists. Molecules detected in the atmosphere of an exoplanet known as K2-18b. Molecules that, frankly, just don't belong there. Not, that is, unless something alive is actively producing them. Think about that for a moment. The silence of the cosmos, that vast, crushing, seemingly eternal quiet that has fueled centuries of human wonder and anxiety about whether we are truly alone. This data, this chemical signature, might just be the very first delicate crack in that silence. It's a whisper across the vacuum, and it holds the potential to utterly transform how we perceive life itself, how we understand our place in this sprawling universe, and perhaps even how we see ourselves. The journey to this potential breakthrough began with a deep, meticulous dive into the spectrographic data gathered by JWST. Spectrography is a bit like taking a celestial barcode scanner and running it over the light that filters through an exoplanet's atmosphere as it passes in front of its star. Different chemicals in the atmosphere absorb light at specific, unique wavelengths, leaving tiny lines or dips in the stellar spectrum. By analyzing these lines, astronomers can figure out what gases are present. JWST, with its incredibly sensitive instruments like NIR-SPEC, the near-infrared spectrograph, and MIRI, the mid-infrared instrument, is exceptionally good at this. Astronomers were using these tools to study K2-18b during one of its transits, those moments when it crosses paths with its host star from our perspective here on Earth. As the starlight filtered through K2-18b's atmosphere, JWST captured the subtle ways the atmosphere imprinted itself on the light. What they found went far beyond the usual suspects. Sure, they detected common compounds like carbon dioxide and methane, which are found in many planetary atmospheres and can arise from geological or atmospheric processes, not necessarily life. But then, amidst the expected signatures, they spotted something else. A faint, yes, but unmistakable chemical signature that made them pause. It was the signature of dimethyl sulfide, or DMS, and possibly dimethyl disulfide, DMDS. Now, why would a molecule like DMS, something you might never have heard of, be the cause of such excitement? Because here on Earth, DMS is overwhelmingly produced by living organisms. Think about the smell of the ocean, that distinct briny scent near the coast. Much of that is DMS being released into the air by phytoplankton, those microscopic marine plants that form the base of the ocean's food web. Certain bacteria also produce DMS. It's a metabolic byproduct, a tiny chemical exhaust from life doing its thing. Finding it elsewhere, especially on a world potentially covered in water, is like finding a piece of seaweed on a distant shore. It strongly hints at what might lie beneath the surface. Here's where the story takes a truly cutting-edge turn. These signals, particularly the tricky-to-isolate DMS signature, weren't just found by traditional spectrum analysis. They were teased out, isolated, and confirmed by a quantum artificial intelligence system. This wasn't your standard AI. This system was trained specifically to look for complex chemical entanglements and subtle, non-linear correlations hidden deep within noisy data sets, the kind of noise and complexity that can easily mask weak signals from distant worlds. It wasn't just looking for a simple match to a known chemical barcode. It was looking for relationships between different parts of the spectrum, patterns that might only become apparent when viewed through a multidimensional lens that human brains aren't wired for. And this quantum AI flagged the DMS signal with over 3 sigma confidence. In scientific terms, 3 sigma means there's a very low probability that this is just random noise. It's not definitive proof, but it's the kind of signal scientists dream of finding when searching for something as profound as life beyond Earth. But hold on, because this is just the beginning. What happens next? The scientific back and forth, the challenges, and the follow-up observations is what truly makes this story fascinating and potentially world-changing. If this kind of mind-blowing science excites you, the kind that sits right on the edge of human knowledge and explores the deepest mysteries, then make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We dive into discoveries like this every single week, exploring the universe's biggest questions together. Now let's talk about K2-18b itself. Discovered back in 2015, this isn't just any exoplanet randomly picked out of the sky. It belongs to a fascinating class of planets that astronomers call Hycean worlds. The name is a mashup: Hy for hydrogen-rich atmosphere and Scene for ocean. The hypothesis is that these planets, which are larger than Earth but smaller than Neptune, often called super-Earths or mini-Neptunes, could possess thick hydrogen-dominated atmospheres, potentially overlying vast liquid water oceans. Imagine a planet significantly bigger than Earth, but perhaps with a similar mass range, giving it a reasonable surface gravity. Then, wrap it in a dense, puffy atmosphere made mostly of hydrogen, which is the most abundant element in the universe. Beneath that thick, isolating blanket of hydrogen, the conditions, temperature and pressure, could allow for a deep, global ocean of liquid water to exist on the planet's surface. Think of it as a scaled-up Earth, but one shrouded in a much thicker hydrogen-rich envelope, potentially hiding a world of water beneath the fog. A super-Earth with a real possibility for life beneath its clouds. Back in 2019, data from the Hubble Space Telescope had already hinted at the presence of water vapor in K2-18b's atmosphere. That was incredibly exciting, a tantalizing clue, but the signal was weak, and the findings were ultimately inconclusive. Hubble, for all its brilliance, doesn't have the infrared sensitivity of JWST. It was Webb's far sharper, colder, more advanced instruments, specifically tuned to pick up subtle, chemical fingerprints in infrared light, that finally pushed the door open further. And while many advanced AI systems were used to help interpret the complex torrent of data from JWST, the real breakthrough, the flagging of the truly anomalous molecules like DMS, came from a custom-built quantum-trained model from a private research lab located in Geneva. This wasn't just about crunching numbers faster. The algorithm wasn't simply running a checklist of known molecules to see if they were present. Its strength lay in its ability to map non-linear correlations and subtle dependencies between different spectral lines, across different data points, and even over the sequence of observations during the transit. It was looking for a deeper pattern, a chemical ecology embedded within the light signature. And what it found was that faint chemical whisper, the potential signature of something living, something actively altering its environment. But this discovery, as revolutionary as it sounds, immediately leads to the most fundamental question. Can life really exist in such a strange world? A Hycean world with a thick hydrogen atmosphere? That's what scientists began diving into next, and it opens up a whole universe of possibilities and scientific debate. Let's explore some of those possibilities. The team at Cambridge University, who were leading this specific study analyzing the initial NIR-SPEC data, offered a bold but scientifically grounded hypothesis. They suggested that the DMS and DMDS signatures could be the telltale byproduct of microbial life thriving in the vast ocean they believe might lie beneath K2-18b's thick hydrogen skies. Let's bring it back to Earth to understand this connection. Our own planet's oceans are teeming with life, much of it invisible to the naked eye. Phytoplankton, those microscopic powerhouses of the sea, perform photosynthesis and release DMS into the air as part of their metabolic processes. The same goes for certain types of bacteria living in aquatic environments. Now, picture a similar process happening light years away on K2-18b. Imagine alien microbes, perhaps somewhat similar in function to our phytoplankton or bacteria, but adapted to the specific conditions of a Hycean world, maybe thriving in a warm, possibly high-pressure ocean beneath that heavy hydrogen atmosphere. These alien microbes would be busily living their lives, photosynthesizing, if light can penetrate the clouds, or using chemosynthesis if it can't, metabolizing nutrients, and as a result, releasing sulfur compounds like DMS into their environment, which would then diffuse up into the planet's hydrogen-rich atmosphere. Under the right conditions, that thick atmosphere could effectively trap and circulate these chemicals, preventing them from being quickly destroyed by stellar radiation, though this is a point of debate, as we'll see. And crucially, when starlight passes through that atmosphere, carrying the signature of these accumulated chemicals, our telescopes like JWST can capture it. This theory aligns well with the presence of methane, another potential biosignature, though also producible abiotically, and carbon dioxide, which were also found in the data. Together, this suite of molecules starts to paint a picture that suggests not just the possibility of life, but the signs of a functioning, dynamic biosphere, a complex system where chemicals are produced, consumed, and cycled. Still, as you might expect, this is cutting-edge science, and with extraordinary claims come extraordinary demands for proof. Skepticism isn't just warranted, it's absolutely essential to the scientific process. Could these molecules, or the signals attributed to them, be produced without life? Is there some exotic photochemical reaction, some unusual volcanic process, or even just plain old atmospheric chemistry that could mimic the chemical signatures we see? Scientists explored these possibilities. Maybe, just maybe, there's an abiotic pathway on a Hycean world that produces DMS. But the initial analysis suggests that the ratios of the detected molecules and the patterns in their spectral signatures don't easily match any known non-biological processes. On Earth, for instance, abiotic production of DMS is almost non-existent. The unique combination and relative abundances of the chemicals observed on K2-18b simply didn't line up with known, non-living explanations. So for the moment, the biosignature theory, while requiring further proof, stood as the most compelling explanation. But here's where the story hits a significant snag, a problem that threatened to unravel everything and tossed the scientific community into a whirlwind of debate. Just days after the Cambridge study highlighting the potential DMS detection went public, a different team, this time based at Oxford University, published their own independent analysis. They had taken the very same raw JWST data for K2-18b and run their own complex atmospheric retrieval models, essentially trying to replicate the Cambridge team's findings using their own methods and software. Their conclusion? It was a scientific gut punch for those hoping for easy answers. The Oxford team reported that they could not replicate the DMS and DMDS detections at all. Their models suggested that the subtle spectral signatures identified by the Cambridge team might not be real chemicals in the atmosphere, but instead could be artifacts. What does artifact mean in this context? It means quirks or errors caused by the instrument itself, like slight variations in how different parts of JWST's detectors respond, or biases inherent in the complex computer models used to interpret the data, especially in the tricky overlap zones where data from different JWST instruments or detector regions meet. And to make matters worse, The Oxford team pointed out another crucial detail. The DMS signal, if real and produced by life, seemed to lack complementary molecules that should be present if metabolic pathways similar to Earth's life were creating it. For instance, nitrogen, or other sulfur byproducts that often accompany DMS production on Earth, were not detected. Their absence weakened the biological argument for the Oxford team. Suddenly, the most exciting potential biosignature ever detected seemed to be hanging by a thread, possibly nothing more than a mirage generated by data complexity and instrumental noise. The initial wave of exhilaration was met with a necessary dose of cold scientific skepticism. Or is it just a necessary pause before the next, more convincing piece of evidence arrives? One thing became immediately clear. This mystery was far from over. In fact, it had just entered its most intense and fascinating phase. Because now, the race is on. Scientists around the world are scrutinizing the data, refining their models, and preparing for the next crucial step. More observations. And what comes next changes everything again, pushing the boundaries of how we use our most advanced tools. Let's slow down for a second and think about the human element here. This isn't just a story about chemical traces on a distant world or abstract telescope readings. It's deeply, fundamentally about what it means to even look for life beyond Earth. We, as a species, have spent centuries gazing up at the night sky, wondering in our quiet moments if we are truly alone in this immense, cosmic ocean. That question is woven into our myths, our philosophies, our very sense of self. And now, armed with incredible tools like the James Webb Space Telescope and advanced analytical techniques like quantum AI, we feel closer than ever to potentially getting an answer. But reaching for answers on this scale comes with inherent risk. The risk of disappointment, the risk of misinterpretation, the risk of hope crashing against the rocks of harsh reality. It's a journey fraught with uncertainty, yet it is undeniably exhilarating. This is science at its absolute edge, pushing into the unknown, embracing the possibility while remaining grounded in the need for rigorous proof. If you've made it this far through the science, the debate, and the philosophical questions, you're clearly someone who enjoys wrestling with the deep stuff, the questions that keep us up at night and expand our understanding of existence. If so, please hit the like button and let us know your theory in the comments below. Are we looking at genuinely compelling signs of life, or just strange, complex chemistry playing tricks on our instruments and models? Because trust me, the scientific debate is only just beginning, and your thoughts are part of this global conversation. On one side of this unfolding scientific drama stand the Cambridge researchers. They are driven, meticulous, and quietly convinced that their analysis, particularly with the help of that quantum AI, has uncovered something truly extraordinary. To them, the detection of methane, the potential detection of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, and later the hint of ammonia, which we'll get to in a moment, form a coherent, biologically plausible suite of biosignature candidates on a world that otherwise ticks the boxes for habitability. They argue that the quantum AI's power wasn't just in spotting single molecules, it was in decoding relationships, mapping delicate harmonic patterns, identifying pressure-correlated spectral fingerprints, and analyzing how absorption profiles behaved across time within the data. These were intricate patterns that, they argue, no human team sifting through the raw data could have realistically caught. To the Cambridge team, this isn't random noise, it's a sophisticated signal, a new kind of signal, filtered through a multidimensional logic that is untethered from our more linear, reductionist ways of analyzing data. A signal that might just be telling us, unequivocally, that life in some form is out there. But on the other side of the debate, standing with unwavering scientific rigor, are the researchers from Oxford. And they are not yet ready to buy into the hype. Their skepticism doesn't come from a place of denial or unwillingness to find life. Far from it. Their skepticism is rooted in the very core principles of scientific discipline. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinarily airtight validation. They rightly argue that the complex computer models used to analyze K2-18b's atmosphere, while groundbreaking in their own right, are still built upon numerous assumptions. Assumptions about the planet's cloud composition. Are they water clouds? Sulfide clouds? The atmospheric temperature gradients. How does temperature change with altitude? The precise effects of the host star's radiation on the atmosphere, stellar contamination, and even the exact ways specific molecules absorb light under the exotic pressure and temperature conditions found on a Hycean world, molecule-specific. Absorption cross-sections. Each of these assumptions introduces potential uncertainties that could be misinterpreted as chemical signatures. And when it comes to the quantum AI, impressive as it is, the Oxford team voices a deeper, more philosophical caution. They warn of what they call epistemological overreach. This is a fancy way of saying, when you use a machine or a method that operates in mathematical or conceptual dimensions that we humans don't fully understand or can't easily visualize, as is the case with some aspects of quantum computing and advanced AI pattern recognition, you run the risk of generating signals from patterns that don't actually correspond to physical reality. The Oxford team fears that what we might be seeing isn't a biosignature from K2-18b. It might be the AI's own echo, a pattern mathematically generated within the complex data that is real to the AI's logic, but lacks a true physical cause in the planet's atmosphere. It's a profound concern. Could the power of this new tool lead us to hallucinate discoveries? This is where the core tension of this moment in scientific history lives. Because quantum AI doesn't just see better than traditional methods, arguably it sees differently. It can map spectral line relationships across hyperdimensional matrices, build temporal invariant frequency webs, identifying patterns that persist regardless of slight timing differences in observations, and correlate weak signals across different instruments, different observation times, and even different chemical families that might be linked in a metabolic process. In essence, it doesn't just ask what known molecules are present. It asks a much more fundamental question. What is connected? What patterns exist in this light? This ability allows it to detect ultra-subtle harmonics, tiny resonant patterns in how light is absorbed by the atmosphere, patterns that no traditional linear method, which typically analyzes each spectral line in isolation or in simple combinations, could ever hope to see. These harmonics, these subtle correlations across the spectrum, aren't necessarily just noise. They might represent the complex, intertwined rhythms of biological activity, compounds being produced together, consumed together, or dynamically sustained in specific ratios by lifelike chemistry. But here lies the paradox, the true scientific and philosophical challenge. The very complexity, the multidimensional view, the ability to find connections beyond human intuition that gives quantum AI its immense power, is also what opens the door wide to potential misinterpretation. Could the system be generating correlations that only exist inside its own abstract mathematical space? Patterns that are mathematically perfect but utterly meaningless in terms of the planet's actual physical or biological processes? Could it be hallucinating patterns in the data, beautiful and convincing within its own logic, but physically unreal? This isn't a question of whether the AI is capable. Clearly, it's capable of finding patterns we can't. It's a deeper question of trust. Trust in a method whose workings are, in some ways, as opaque to us as the distant planet itself. And right now, that trust, and the fate of this potential discovery, hangs precariously on what comes next. The scientific community knows this, and the next crucial step is already in motion. The James Webb Space Telescope's schedule is precious, but K2-18b is now a top priority target. Follow-up observations are being planned and executed specifically utilizing JWST's MIRI instrument, the mid-infrared instrument. MIRI scans a different slice of the infrared spectrum compared to NIR spec, a range that is more sensitive to different molecules, including potentially more robust signals from molecules like ammonia, and critically, reinforcing the search for DMS. These upcoming MIRI observations will be conducted with a longer observation window, allowing for deeper integration times, essentially staring at the planet for longer to collect more light and build up a stronger signal. This also helps with better noise control if MIRI confirms the presence of DMS, especially if it's detected in the expected abundance ratios that would align with biological production, or if it detects ammonia independently using completely different wavelengths and detectors than NIR spec. Then the quantum AI's initial findings gain a whole new, massive level of credibility. Suddenly, we wouldn't just be relying on one instrument or one analysis method, we'd be looking at multimodal confirmation of potential biosignatures. Different instruments, designed to see different parts of the light spectrum, using different detection methods, analyzed perhaps by different teams or different AI systems, all converging on the same strange, exciting answer: the presence of molecules that shouldn't be there unless life is producing them. And if that happens, if independent systems converge on the same extraordinary result, then even the most rigorous skeptics, like the Oxford team, will have to pause. Because when multiple lines of evidence, arrived at through different pathways, point in the same direction, science doesn't ignore it. Science leans in. It investigates with renewed urgency and focus. But until that crucial MIRI data arrives, is analyzed, and is debated, we are suspended in a truly unique moment in human history. We are in a threshold state, standing with one foot firmly planted in the cold, demanding ground of scientific skepticism, and the other reaching out towards the breathtaking, almost overwhelming possibility of cosmic companionship. The instruments are calibrated, the observation protocols are locked and loaded, and the scientific countdown has begun. And while we wait, the speculation doesn't stop, because that's the very heartbeat of discovery. The human mind, faced with such potential, naturally races ahead, because what comes next isn't just another routine telescope scan. What comes next could be the very first scientifically verified whisper from life beyond Earth. Just before this video was recorded, like a quiet ripple through the scientific community, something else potentially significant slipped through the cracks. It wasn't a formal publication, but a small, very real data leak or preliminary report circulating among European Space Agency collaborators working closely with the James Webb Space Telescope data. This report, if accurate, revealed a stunning possibility. JWST's MIRI spectrometer may have indeed detected trace levels of ammonia in the atmosphere of K2-18b. Now, for most people, the word ammonia might not immediately spark thoughts of alien life. It's a common compound, right? Used in fertilizers to help grow our food, a key ingredient in some industrial cleaners, even found in tiny amounts in your refrigerator or produced by your own body. But in planetary science, context is everything. And on a hydrogen-rich exoplanet, like K2-18b, ammonia should, theoretically, be highly unstable. Think about it. A hydrogen-rich atmosphere is full of free-floating hydrogen atoms. Ammonia, NH3, is made of nitrogen and hydrogen. Stellar radiation from the host star, while K2-18b orbits a cooler red dwarf, is still energetic enough to break apart molecules high in the atmosphere. In this environment, ammonia should be quickly photodissociated, broken down by starlight, or chemically altered into more inert compounds, like nitrogen gas, N2, which is much harder to detect and less reactive. Ammonia should deplete relatively quickly unless something is actively, continuously replenishing it. And what, on Earth, is a classic source of ammonia replenishment? Life. Microorganisms, particularly those living in oceanic or aquatic environments, excrete ammonia as a waste product during the metabolic processes that involve nitrogen. It's a fundamental part of the nitrogen cycle, essential for life as we know it. Its presence, especially in an environment where it shouldn't otherwise be stable, is often tied directly to the byproducts of living organisms. So, if we are detecting ammonia on K2-18b, even at trace levels, it immediately raises a fundamental, earth-shattering question. What could possibly be producing it and replenishing it against the natural processes of atmospheric destruction? This potential detection, if verified by the formal analysis and subsequent observations, isn't just notable on its own. It becomes the second significant potential biosignature we've picked up from K2-18b within a very short time frame. Weeks before the news of the potential ammonia detection circulated, JWST's NIR spec instrument delivered those initial hints of methane and, critically, that tantalizing potential detection of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, that compound here on Earth, almost exclusively produced by marine organisms like phytoplankton. So now, put it all together. We are potentially looking at a trifecta: methane, DMS, and ammonia, all detected, or strongly hinted at, in separate JWST instrument datasets, all appearing within weeks of one another as the initial analysis was being conducted, and all, when considered in the context of what we know about life and chemistry on Earth, suggesting one astonishing possibility: biological activity. And here's where things get even wilder, bringing our cutting-edge analytical tool back into the picture. The Geneva-based quantum AI system, which proved so adept at pulling the subtle DMS signature from the noise, has reportedly already begun reprocessing the raw MIRI data set as it becomes available. And its early preliminary analysis? It has reportedly identified resonance patterns within the potential ammonia signal, patterns that align with specific atmospheric pressure and temperature conditions deep within K2-18b's atmosphere. And what do those conditions, in theory, correspond to? Conditions that would allow for the stable existence of liquid water beneath the planet's thick cloud deck. Combine all the pieces: potential liquid oceans, a stable hydrogen-rich atmosphere, and now a molecular environment featuring active chemical cycling, including potential sulfur compounds, DMS, and nitrogen compounds, ammonia, both key elements for life. This isn't just maybe habitable anymore. This is starting to look less like a static, dead world and more like a functioning, dynamic biosphere, a place where life doesn't just could exist, but where the chemistry suggests it does exist, actively shaping its environment. The implications of this potential convergence of evidence are absolutely enormous. No, let me be clear. This does not mean there are little green aliens waving at us from the surface of K2-18b, or that they are broadcasting radio signals we can pick up with our current technology. The signals we are potentially detecting are far more subtle, but it might mean something infinitely more profound. We might, just might, be quite literally smelling alien plankton. Microscopic life, perhaps analogous to Earth's phytoplankton or bacteria, thriving in a subsurface ocean beneath the clouds of a Hycean world. A scaled-up mini-Neptune orbiting a red dwarf star 124 light-years away. That isn't science fiction, conjured from our imaginations. That is the actual potential shape of the data currently being debated and analyzed by some of the sharpest minds on the planet. And what makes it even more astonishing is how these potential detections are converging. They are not isolated flukes or anomalies popping up in a single instrument's data. We are seeing corroborated signals, detected by different instruments on JWST, NIR spec, and MIRI, sensitive to different wavelengths of light, looking for different chemical species, methane, DMS, ammonia, all pointing in the same general direction. And that direction is pointing straight towards life. We are witnessing, in real time, the possible emergence of our very first true evidence that biology isn't some unique, precious miracle, confined solely to our pale blue dot. That the chemistry of life, the intricate dance and give and take of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen, isn't just something that happened here by some incredible, improbable accident. It may, in fact, be a universal pattern, a natural outcome of chemistry unfolding under the right conditions across the cosmos. And now, with each new data set that comes down from JWST, and each reanalysis by advanced systems like that quantum AI, the veil that separates us from this potential reality is lifting just a little more. What we are seeing from K2-18b may not just be another interesting astronomical finding. It may be the very beginning of an entirely new chapter in science. A moment where humanity transitions from the centuries-long search for life beyond Earth to the potentially verifiable detection of it. Not through grand, deliberate signals from advanced civilizations, but through the quiet, persistent chemical whispers of microbial life, the most fundamental form of biology. Life that might be far older than us, infinitely simpler in structure, but profoundly there nonetheless. So the question isn't just, did we find life? The real question now, if these findings hold, might be, how many worlds like this are out there? How many other Hycean planets, super-Earths, or even different types of worlds might harbor subsurface oceans teeming with life, patiently broadcasting their existence through subtle atmospheric chemistry? Let's bring this back home, to our own lives, our own perspectives. For the first time in human history, we are not merely speculating about the possibility of alien life in hushed tones around a campfire or writing fantastical stories. We are analyzing it. Seriously. We are holding actual data in our hands, data beamed from space, that may be the very first biological signature from a world beyond our solar system. A complex cocktail of chemicals detected, or potentially detected in K2-18b's atmosphere. Dimethyl sulfide, methane, carbon dioxide, and now possibly ammonia. These molecules, found together in this specific combination, on a planet that already checks many of the boxes for habitability, potential liquid water oceans, temperatures that could support life, orbiting a stable host star, come together in a way that, here on Earth, almost always means one thing: life. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't just one unusual molecule showing up unexpectedly in a telescope, reading that could easily be dismissed as a fluke. It's multiple potential biosignatures, each interesting on its own, but found together in the same atmosphere, on a planet that looks like a prime candidate for life. When stacked side by side, considered in context, these signals don't just whisper, maybe life. They start to hint at something louder, something more coherent, something dynamically alive. But, and it's a crucial but, the truth is, we are still in the very early innings of this cosmic investigation. The skeptics, like the team at Oxford, are absolutely right to tap the brakes, to demand more proof, to scrutinize every potential error source. Science, true science, doesn't move forward on hope or exciting headlines alone. It moves on replication, on error margins shrinking to negligible levels, on data that holds up when viewed from different angles, analyzed by different independent teams using different methods. And right now, those next observations from the James Webb Space Telescope, specifically the deeper, more targeted scans using its MIRI spectrometer, are the key. If those potential signals hold up, if ammonia is formally confirmed at levels that can't be explained abiotically, if the DMS detection is corroborated by a different instrument operating in a different wavelength range, or if we detect other nitrogen or sulfur compounds that only life could plausibly produce in those quantities under those conditions, then we will have something far, far beyond a mere anomaly. We will have a pattern. And patterns, reliable, repeatable patterns, confirmed by independent means, that's where science finds truth. And that truth, if it confirms the presence of life, opens a door we've only ever dreamed of standing in front, Because this isn't about hypothetical aliens with flying saucers, or the far-fetched science fiction fantasies of intelligent beings from other stars visiting Earth. This is about microscopic organisms, about fundamental chemistry, about the robust, persistent power of biology. It's about the same kinds of basic processes, metabolism, adaptation, reproduction, that gave rise to life here on Earth, potentially happening independently in a hydrogen-rich ocean under the dense clouds of a distant exoplanet. It would mean we may not be alone, but perhaps even more profoundly, it would mean we may not be unique. And that realization, if it comes, changes everything about our perspective. Think of what this means philosophically, religiously, existentially. If life is common, if even microbes can emerge from the raw soup of nature, given the right fundamental conditions, then the universe is not the vast, dead, silent void it has so often appeared to be. It is alive. It is creative. It is full of possibility we are only just beginning to glimpse. It also says something incredibly profound about us, humanity. Because we didn't stumble upon this potential discovery by blind luck. We found it because we dared to imagine building machines that could peer across impossible distances. We asked the most fundamental questions about our existence. We pushed past the limits of what seemed possible, firing telescopes 1,000,000 miles into space, training complex artificial intelligence systems to decode the universe's secrets, collaborating across international borders, scientific disciplines, and generations of researchers. This moment, right now, is more than just a potential discovery of alien life. It is a signal in itself. A signal not from distant aliens, but from us. A signal that says we are ready. Ready to listen to the universe's whispers. Ready to understand its deepest workings. Ready, perhaps, to find out that we were never the only story it had to tell. And if that is the case, then that story is only just beginning to unfold. If this incredible potential discovery has changed how you see the universe, even just a little, you absolutely won't want to miss what comes next. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because while we eagerly await the official confirmation and analysis of K2-18b's next data, there are other potential whispers out there. Next time, we're diving deep into Webb's analysis of the famous TRAPPIST-1 system, and why some scientists believe one of those intriguing planets might already be sending us signals. Not necessarily deliberate messages, but perhaps another kind of chemical hint that we are listening for.